Hello, everyone. I am really, really sorry. Sorry I'm so late. Sorry if any of you have been waiting for the show to start. But I've had infuriating technical problems with my stream again. So I don't know whether it's going to be possible to do the show. But if any of you can just put a comment in the box just to see whether you can hear me okay, see me okay, and whether I'm badly lagging due to the internet issues I'm having at the moment, pop a comment in there, just let me know. But I've tried with all the guests that I had on, due to come on today, and it's not working properly, no matter what I've been doing. So I'm really, really apologetic if that's the case. I'm going to see whether I can do something on my own, whether sort of shortening the bandwidth, not having any guests on, is going to make a bit of a difference. So if you're happy with that, and I'm happy with that, and if it's working, then great. So initially, I wanted to talk about the Olympiacos midway point, what happened last week, and what's going to happen tomorrow. Hopefully, I need your input because I am all on my lonesome. So I want some questions and some comments in the box, please. That would be fantastic. That we can discuss through together and interact that way. But last week with the Olympiacos tie, it was very different points of view that were coming across on Twitter, social media, the podcasts I've been listening to, and very, very different opinions that were going around about the match. I thought personally that there couldn't be much more of a better away performance in Europe than we actually did with the squad that we've got. It was a really tricky tie. Everyone knew that it was going to be very difficult. It's never easy going to these teams, especially Olympiacos with the form that they've been having this year. The only match they'd lost was against Bayern Munich, which is 3-2, I believe, earlier on in the Champions League. And we all saw what Bayern Munich have done to Tottenham and to Chelsea this season, including obviously yesterday. And it's a difficult place to go. They always are in Greece and places like Turkey, etc. It's very intimidating atmosphere. We've got a lot of young players and obviously a young manager who's never managed in Europe before. I think overall, there with a 1-0 win, and I'm delighted with it. I am, a clean sheet and an away goal. I don't think we can get much better than that. So with the match tomorrow, I think it's going to be obviously easier being at home. I don't think they're going to find it easy. I just hope that we can get a good big crowd going and make it intimidating for them on the night, because that's going to be a big factor. And I think under Arteta, the crowd have been absolutely fantastic at the Emirates. I think it's been a far more buoyant atmosphere, and everyone's been getting behind the team. Even against Everton the other day when we went behind so early, I think it was it never stopped, and the crowd were getting behind the team. It comes across really, really well when you're watching remotely. When I was in the ground against Newcastle, I thought the fans were fantastic that night as well. So I think a lot of it will depend on how we get behind them. I'm hopeful of a pretty decent turnout tomorrow at home. I hope that's the case anyway. It's a bit annoying when you see all the empty seats. Obviously, the attendance gets reported all the time. There's as being a capacity sellout. And I know technically that's the case, but something's got to be done. I don't know whether you guys think about this, but when you've bought your tickets in advance with your season ticket and just don't bother turning up, I find that infuriating, really, that clubs are across the continent are doing things about that. I think it could be Dortmund actually that's put a stop to that. But if you're not going to turn up, then you lose your season ticket after so many times that you haven't turned up for the match. I think something like that's got to be done, really, because there's a lot of good fans that are desperate to be going, and it just takes a piss a bit, really, when you just can't be asked to turn up of a night. But let me know what you think on that. But I don't know what the answer is. I'm not paid to do that. I'm not an expert in that. But I think to do with, the ticket exchange system, I think something should be utilised as far as that's concerned. But tomorrow, it very much looks like Lacazette's going to be starting, considering the fact that he was in the press conference today. I watched it live during my lunch break today, and Lacazette didn't look happy at all. I mean, he said all the right things. One of the reporters put it to him about a report, which I haven't seen actually, that came out this morning, saying that he's got the right, he's negotiated the right to leave at the end of the season if we don't get Champions League football. And he looked very surprised and shocked at that. Or did he? Was he putting that on? Mikel Arteta didn't look very happy when it was brought up. But Lacazette batted it away and said that, well, I didn't know about that. It's news to me. So hopefully that's the case. I mean, this is one of the things we're going to be discussing tonight, with regards to Lacazette, but whether it will be the end of the world if he left in the summer, I'm not so sure. I don't think it will be. Not that I don't like the guy, I really do, but if he's not heart's not in it, then I really do think we definitely need to get rid of him. But even if his heart is in it and he's only got like a couple of years left on his contract come this summer, then it's going to be difficult to decide what to do. And I think that genuinely that Gabriel Martinelli is ready to, from next season, just be given the mantle to have a first team place. I mean, people will say he's very young. Oh God, no, he's too young to put that. Well, I'm sorry, but look at Erling Haaland, who's only 19. Not much difference in age. Look at what Mbappe's been doing at his age over the last 2 or 3 years. He won a World Cup when he was a similar age, and I don't think that's going to be an issue for Gabriel Martinelli. He's got the broad shoulders and the confidence to be able to take that on. So if we were to sell, for example, Aubameyang and Lacazette, then I don't think we need to buy 2 people, because I think that Martinelli will definitely be able to take on the mantle of a starting berth every week, and it's going to save us an awful lot of money. And it also depends how quickly and how many opportunities Eddie's going to get between now and the end of the season as well. Because if he carries on the way he's been playing the last couple of games, then that's going to be an interesting situation to have to deal with in the summer. But it's all good. It's all good situations. I'm not complaining about it one bit. But I think tomorrow, with the lineup, he's going to go strong. I think it's going to be a similar sort of situation to the team that he played against Olympiacos. And he'll be able to rotate the team a bit more when it comes to the FA Cup game next week. It's such a sad situation. I wasn't sad to see Kolasinac go off at the weekend, because we all want Saka to play, but he needs a rest, and that was the idea. Obviously, putting him on the bench to start off with. But now that Kolasinac has got this injury, I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but it doesn't look good according to Arteta. So now we're back to just one fit left back at the moment. But Tierney is due to come back in March, and technically Monday is in March. So I don't know whether it's going to be the early part of March, middle, end, that Tierney's back, but he has been in full training for the last, about a week or so at least. So I've heard on a couple of podcasts that he's potentially back on Monday for the FA Cup game. And if that's the case, then that's brilliant. Perfect timing, because we don't want to knacker out Bukayo Saka for obvious reasons. But he's going to looks like he's definitely going to have to play tomorrow. So I think the team will probably be very similar to the one that was played last week, and I won't be surprised if Socrates goes back to right back again. And it opens up the question again, which I know everyone's asking, but about Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and I can only see that the issue with Ainsley Maitland-Niles is down to him not wanting to play and not being flexible enough to play right backs, and coming out publicly and saying it. Now, we've probably all heard the comments from Mikel Arteta about Bukayo Saka and his attitude, and the fact that he's accepted this new role, wants to prove himself in this new role, and is happy to take this new role in order to play first team football for Arsenal. And him making those comments about him really lead you to understand the problem that Mikel Arteta has probably got with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. It's just so strange when he was one of the best players on the pitch in Mikel Arteta's first 5 games after taking over. We all were praising Maitland-Niles' performances. So it is very odd that he's just been seemingly put into a cannon and shot into the middle of the sun since. Although he has made an appearance for a minute here and a minute there since, but his total omission and the fact that Socrates is playing ahead of him at right back is very, very strange and very odd. He may be just having to be put in his place, maybe taking down a peg or two by Arteta, and maybe we'll all be surprised and he'll actually play tomorrow. But it is an odd one. Everyone, I think, would rather see him play than Socrates at right back. So we'll have to wait and see. There's no doubt that we've been surprised every now and then by some choices that Arteta has made. So, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised to see Luiz and Mustafi in the centre of defence again. Although I would love to see Pablo Mari. I think he will more likely get his debut in the FA Cup, I'd imagine. But I've been really enjoying Ceballos' performances. Everyone knows what I think about Ceballos. And it was a surprise when he came back into the team about 3 matches ago. But I couldn't be more happy, to be perfectly honest, because he really needs to prove himself between now and the end of the season. And these rumours that are going around about Thomas Partey and us activating his release clause fee, I mean, that's so very exciting. And it leads me on to sort of daydreaming about a partnership, a dual pivot at the back of Partey and Ceballos. And I think that would offer us so much, and it would be so exciting with Ceballos' ability on the ball, total comfort on the ball, and his underrated tackling of the ball as well. I was actually watching the last game on NBC because I couldn't get a decent stream on Sky Sports, and I got a really good stream with NBC, and they actually said that Ceballos is shockingly turning into a real midfield enforcer against Everton, and it was the case. I mean, he had a steaming, brilliant second half, in my opinion. He ran out of legs a bit when he went off, but up until that point, I think the whole team really had a bit of a dodgy start to the match, but he really picked up quickly. And the way that he sort of feints to go one way and sort of goes the other way within a split second and sort of completely wrong foots the opposition, it's fantastic. And he's got a really good pass on him, and he's very, very press resistant. And if you had someone like him playing alongside Thomas Partey next season, that'd be very exciting because it would offer pretty much everything. Partey offering the pace, power, the aggression, and the box-to-box mentality that he's got. Also can score a goal, as we all saw not long ago. It would be a very mouth-watering double pivot in front of the back four, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I really want to see Ceballos really prove himself and cement a place in the squad in the running now, the last 11 games in the Premier League. So, yeah, very delighted with that. I couldn't help but laugh, really, when I read the reports about the real reasons Guendouzi was dropped for his behaviour in Dubai. sort of jumping up and taking off his shirt and swinging it around above his head, and Edu having to step in. I thought that was really hilarious, and we all love him for that sort of real sort of character that he's got. And but it's also very, very positive that Arteta is taking the role of being an Arsenal player very, very seriously, and I do like that. And setting the standards and setting the class back into the club, I think it's a very important thing. So I'm happy in both ways, really, that Guendouzi is Guendouzi, and the fact that he's going to have to fall into line and really sort of toe the line with regards to our standards and class as a club. So it was positive all around. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him tomorrow, because I think that the midfield is due a bit of a reshuffle. And I liked the way he was brought on against Everton in the sort of the number 10 role instead of Ozil, and the pressing he was doing. And it obviously led to the shot that nearly created Eddie Nketiah's second goal, which very, very unlucky when he hit the post and sort of crossbar almost simultaneously within that shot. It would have been a brilliant goal, brilliant finish. And I quite like that, especially if he's utilised in that sort of role in the last sort of 20, 30 minutes of a game, when he just makes a pest of himself and creates an extra headache for the sort of defensive midfielders and the defence for the opposition. I thought he did that really, really well. And in certain games when we are protecting a lead, rather than to bring on a sort of defensive midfielder to sort of shore things up at the back, I think that's a really good defensive option to have, to shove him on in that sort of more forward role and just snap around like a little Yorkshire Terrier. Quite a really good idea, I think, from Arteta. He's been getting a bit of stick really for his substitutions, and it is something that he's learning as he goes along, and I think they're getting better and better, and as each match progresses. And the problem is, on far too many occasions, he's had one of his substitutions taken away really because of injury, because of a sending off or whatever it may have been. He's lost one of them straight away, like he did against Everton with Kolasinac injury after 14 minutes. And that's a shame, because it does detract from the tactical substitutions he can make further down the line. But I think the ones that he is making, especially the last 2 or 3 games, are getting more and more understandable and more sensible. And that was Guendouzi one, I thought was a bit of a stroke of genius, really. So I was quite happy with that. And with regards to the forwards, I think I'm almost certain that Martinelli will come back tomorrow. He was taking out the squad completely against Everton, and I think that's basically to keep. It's very smart. Just keeps his feet on the ground, and it just gives him a rest. Obviously, I'm almost certain he'll come back for the next couple of games. And I'm just a bit up in the air, really, whether he will be playing back on the left, which is very comfortable in, or whether he'll play through the middle. But if I was to hedge my bets, I'd say go back on the left. Nketiah will carry on up front. Sorry, no, Nketiah won't carry on up front. I beg your pardon. I think that Lacazette will start up front, down the middle. And I probably think that... I don't think Pepe will start. I think it'll probably be his name gone completely out of my head. Reece Nelson. I don't know what's wrong with me then. Reece Nelson probably will come in on the right, which I'll be quite happy with. And we know that Arteta's got a lot of belief in Reece Nelson. So, and he was playing really well in the early days of Arteta's reign. So I'll be quite happy to see Reece Nelson on the right, Martinelli on the left, and Lacazette in the middle. I think that'd be quite a good, front three to have a look at tomorrow. And it could be the same also for the FA Cup match in reality. But I'm quite confident that we're going to get the result tomorrow. I wasn't before the away game. I was absolutely delighted with the result we got in the end. But with the match tomorrow, I'm a lot more comfortable that we're going to get the result. And as each match progresses as well, I get less and less concerned about us performing well in it and not doing well. I think I fancy our chances against anyone now under Arteta, and that's a fantastic feeling to have. So with regards to the Everton game, I was really happy with that as well. We did make a couple of defensive mix-ups. Klasnach showed his rustiness by playing the opposition player on side, wrestling him and not paying any attention to where the ball was and the free kick that came in. That was really disappointing from Klasnach. And I know that Louise could have done better with the header. Leno could have done better with their second goal. So we did make a couple of defensive mix-ups. But a lot has to be said with our determination, our mental strength, and the fact that we played 3 games in 7 days and they hadn't played a game for 15 days, that's going to take its toll. The fact that we didn't get back from Greece until Friday, late afternoon, early evening, that's got to play a part in it as well. Although I think that was very smart management by Arteta, deciding to, because it was a local 10 o'clock kickoff, the match didn't finish till didn't get out of the ground till after 12 o'clock. So he decided to have a good night's sleep, a good meal before they came back. And I think that played its part in the win against Everton. So it was smart management. But it does take its toll having 3 games in 7 days and playing against a team that is also on very good form and under a very strong manager, got good players, and I couldn't be happier with the win. It was a big, big game as far as I was concerned with regards to momentum, continuing the winning run and getting up the table. And the fact that we are only 7 points, I believe, behind 4th place is going to make, regardless of, we just have to take it one game at a time to creep up the table. People in the league above us are definitely going to start looking over their shoulders at us because we are getting better and better, getting more consistent. We're picking up results. We've scored 8 goals in 3 games. So that's going a big, big way to solving our issues at the top of the pitch because people were complaining that we weren't being attacking enough, scoring enough goals. The last 3 games, the last 2 Premier League games specifically, obviously, we've scored 7 goals and it's going in the right direction. So I'm really, really pleased as far as that's concerned. And people are going to start sitting up and taking notice of us, and they're going to be looking over their shoulders, especially Spurs, especially Man United, and especially Chelsea. They are going to be concerned about our pickup in form and the fact that they're still very erratic. So even if we just keep plodding along, we've got a good few games coming up so we can pick up points. The top teams, the teams above us are all playing each other over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and they're going to be taking points off each other. And even if they draw and we win, and we keep clawing the odd 2 points here and there, or even if we only draw and they lose, it's still, we're going to be picking up on them week after week. So I don't think these 7 points is very insurmountable over the next 11 games. There's 33 points left to play for, and Chelsea especially, Spurs especially, Man United, you never know which ones are going to turn up on one match to the next, and we are getting far more strong and consistent as each game progresses under Arteta, and I feel we're going to have a much stronger end of season than they are. So I'm definitely not banking on this 5th place business. I don't think that Man City will take this lying down. They've hired the guy as a solicitor that's cancelled Brexit twice. So they know what they're doing. And they've got more, as I said last week, they've got more money than UEFA. So they're not going to be taking this lying down. And I can see that they're going to get this ban either overturned or prolonged and tie it up in the legal system, legal process. So I'm not banking on this 5th place at all. We've got to go for 4th or above, and I can see it as possible. So we can't relax. We can't sort of just try things out in the Premier League. We've got to go for it. We've got to play our strongest team in each match. And if we're going to experiment, we're going to have to use the FA Cup, in my opinion, and not the Premier League or the Europa League. If we safely get past Olympiacos tomorrow, which I'm comfortable and confident that we will, then I've got a big, strong feeling that the teams we really want to avoid are going to be the other British teams in Man United and Wolves. Definitely Wolves. I'm concerned about them, and I think they could beat anyone on their day. And I think they're really going to go all out for this Europa League. You know, I think they believe that they can win it, and they're not wrong. They could, and they are the team I really, really would like to avoid. I'd rather play Inter Milan, the Wolves, or Man United, if I'm completely honest, because Inter Milan have got bigger fish to fry in their league. They are desperate to win their division, and they haven't done it for so long, with Juventus being the dominant force there. And it's a real fight between Milan, Juve, and Lazio over in Italy. So I genuinely think that they are going to be prioritising that. Bear with me a second. So let's see if this works. Hello, Max. I don't know whether you can hear me or not. I'm having some technical issues.
I can hear you, mate.
If you can hear me.
Can you hear me?
Fantastic. There might be a bit of... Yes, I can. Welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, cheers, bud. We've got a little bit of delay, so we'll just have to allow for it and try not to speak over each other a bit, which, as you know, is difficult for me on my channel, let alone on your channel.
Well, let's pretend we're on walkie-talkies, and at the end of each sentence when you finish, just say that.
Too easy, pal. You've only got me for half an hour. Fucked up and double booked. I'm over on the Arse Bros doing a confessional. Manny's decided to be a priest, and he's going to hear our Arsenal sins. So I had to come up with a couple of sins. But you got me for half an hour, mate.
Well, I saw one of your sins on Twitter that you put down. Oh, bloody hell, what was it now? Oh, yes, under Emery, we played more attacking ball than under Arteta.
No, not exactly.
Hell, honestly, but if I was...
Not exactly.
That is just wrong.
I said, I confess that I saw more of an attacking identity in the good period of Unai Emery, than I have seen in the good period of Arteta. Now, that's by no means me saying that I think that Emery was a better coach. It's just my way of saying I don't think any of the attacking football has been nailed from an Arsenal perspective yet. I've thought, oh, you're kidding me.
Well, I think he's just pulled his internet cable out by the looks of it. Well, I have to disagree. And one thing I'll pick you up on, Max, is that there was no good period of Unai Emery. End of. So we'll see whether he can come back on. Yeah, I mean, I want to forget that the Unai Emery period ever existed, personally. Are you back there, Max? No, it doesn't seem like he's back on at the moment. But yeah, I would prefer, as I was saying, Inter Milan because of that fact. But hang on, I think Max may be back.
I fucking hate technology.
Max, are you there?
I am, mate. I'm just complaining about how much I fucking hate technology.
Mate, me too. I've had issues galore tonight. It's been a nightmare. I didn't think I was going to be doing a live show because of the issues I've been having. But I just said when you went off that the major thing I disagree with what you just said is that there was no good period under Unai Emery, because he's Unai Emery and he was in charge of Arsenal, and any period that we had under him was a good one. Anyway,
yeah,
I want to ask you a question before you jump in. I was just saying before you joined that, and I can explain it afterwards, but I would actually prefer, if we get past Olympiacos tomorrow, which I'm very confident we will, I would prefer to play Inter Milan than either of Manchester United or Wolves, because Inter Milan have got a lot more on their plate with regards to trying to retain their division, their fight. They've got a big fight under in their league with Lazio and Juventus, and they're very much running to win the league. And I think they're going to prioritise that over any kind of Europa League run. But I think Man United, and more than Man United, I think Wolves are going to go all out to win this competition, and they've got the talent to do it. So I would rather avoid them at all costs. I would take Inter Milan over them as in the next round if we get that far. What do you think on that? Over.
I think the logic is really, really strong, Andrew. I said something very similar on one of our group feeds, one of the ones you're in with us, saying that Wolves is the bogey team. Wolves is the team I don't want to play. I wouldn't mind playing Wolves in a final because, they're a smaller club and they're not used to being there. But in the lead up and in the quarters, when they're really going at it and they're die hard and they're gung ho, I think back to like the Fulham team that made it through to the final, who just decimated everyone in their path. I think it was under Roy Hodgson. So I wouldn't want to play them. So I actually think I said I would have Man U or I'd have Inter. I'd have Man U because I think they're a terrible fucking football team and we've already beaten them, so we'd be confident. But I agree with you completely. A team like Inter Milan, I think you would argue that they've almost already got Champions League football wrapped up for next season, or very close to having Champions League football wrapped up for next season. And they may very well just throw out a second team against us, and I reckon we'd probably get past them. So good logic, Andrew. I'd say probably the best team out of the three, but I agree with you that they're probably the team that you want to play.
But the thing is with Man United, we all know that they've had some really big scouts this year. They've had problems with all the lower sort of ranked teams in the league, but they've really turned it on and turned up against all the big sides this season. They've beaten Man City twice. They've beaten pretty much everyone, and they can turn it on in a one-off situation. So I'd rather avoid them until further down the line as well, if necessary. Try and let someone else knock them out, if I'm completely honest. Because
they're a paltry team,
they can just be devastating every now and then. Oh, they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible, and I hate them. But you can't deny the fact they can beat the best teams on their day.
But they're a paltry team, and I think it's interesting, not just for them, but also for us, for a lot of teams in the Premier League now, how much some of the big clubs seem to struggle against some of the smaller clubs, or some of the smaller clubs in the top half of the table. It's almost like we don't have the technical proficiency in some of these big clubs. And I think Man U and Arsenal have some real synergies, that there's some big holes, and especially in the way they progress the ball from the back to the front. I think there's good players or decent players in both teams, and there's really bad players in both teams. But I do find it interesting. I find it interesting with Arsenal and Man U as well, how if you set up for us not to score against you, we seem to have massive problems breaking you down. And as an Arsenal fan, I would actually almost rather play a team who's going to come out and play against us now. Maybe not. I don't think we're good enough to go out and give Liverpool's and even maybe City's. City aren't even that good this year, really, but a real go. But all that middle bit, I don't mind us against those teams because they want to play. I think that's the same thing with Man U. That's why they've struggled so much against the Minnows, because they just set up in a low block and don't seem to have the technical proficiency to break it down. That's why I think Ceballos has come into the team, and that's why Arteta's decided he doesn't fancy Torreira, because Torreira doesn't have the mid-range final third entry passing. He's a short spaces player. And I think Arteta's looked at that and said, no, for us to penetrate, we need to get balls through the lines. And that's what Ceballos has done so well.
Absolutely, yeah. I totally agree. That's exactly the reason why he's brought Ceballos back into the team. That's exactly the reason why I've been banging the Ceballos drum all season. I love the guy, and I'm absolutely delighted that he's actually going to get a run in the team now to try and prove himself between now and the end of the season, because I was very much under the impression that we were going to not play him and just let him go back in the summer, and it'll be such a wasted opportunity because I can see such a good player inside of him, and he will benefit so much with having coaching of Arteta under his belt. He's going to be a very, very strong player if he can stay under the guidance of Arteta. I firmly believe that. I think he's got everything, really, apart from pace. 100 times, you don't need pace for the role that he's going to be. He's got that good short burst where he can fake to go one way and go the other way and completely bamboozle the defender. And he can create that couple of yards, and that's all he needs, really. He's not fast over long areas, but like I said, he doesn't need that in the role that I think Arteta's got earmarked for him within the team. But yeah, we improved dramatically, and the way you were talking about the opposition putting up a very deep block. I mean, I know they're not the greatest, but Newcastle obviously did that against us. Very, very strong. They virtually had 5 along the back, and we beat them 4-0 quite comfortably in the end. And they have shut out a lot of other teams this season. They've not been the easiest team to play against. I know they've had a couple of hidings against Leicester, as I was reminded at work, because I work with a lot of Leicester fans. But they are not. They've actually done against some of the bigger teams. Did they beat or draw against Man City? I think. But yeah, they've played well, and they haven't taken many hidings this season. They've defended quite well. They haven't scored, but we sort of took them apart in that second half very comfortably, and I wouldn't fancy our chances against a better team that's doing that than fucking Atletico Madrid, but against a team that's on a similar level to us, I've got more confidence now that we can actually do something. We're a bit more productive at the other end of the pitch, because another argument against what you were saying about seeing more sort of attack fluidity under Emirates occasions. In the last week, we scored 8 goals in the last 3 games, and that's saying something that we're stepping in the right direction, don't you think?
No, I don't. And
it's not the finished article, but we're certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I've been trying really, really hard not to be a negative Nancy, because all the boys on Arse Bros have been pounding me a bit for being a little bit negative. But I personally thought that the last 3 games against Newcastle, Olympiacos, and Everton were terrible. And hear me out, right? Because, and I know Manny's already heard me say this, and he said it was stupid. And I said, I know it's stupid, but just hear me out. Except for the goals, we were crap. And I know that's a stupid statement. I know you have to score the goals, and I know you score the goals to win. But I guess if I'm looking at a 360-degree view of the progression of the team, I'm not massively excited by it. I'm excited by the fact that we're winning. I'm excited by the fact that we're more durable. I'm excited by the fact that we're picking up points. And I put up a tweet where I said the thing that excited me about those games wasn't the fact that I thought that we were really good, or I thought that we had some really visual attacking idea of what we were doing. The thing that excited me about those games, I thought in all of them we fought, and we fought throughout the game. And like you said, in Newcastle, they made it very hard for us, and then we blew it away in a period at the end. I think that's more of a mentality thing than a technical proficiency thing. Against Olympiacos, it was, a very bitty game. They kicked the shit out of Guendouzi, really kicked the shit out of Guendouzi. And we came through that, and we got our goal. Against Everton, we went down, we came back. So I'm not making statements that I don't think the team's healthy and that I don't think the team's coming into some kind of, at least a period of feeling that there's fight and that there's togetherness there, and that the club overall and the feeling around the club has improved and the toxicity is lifted. That's not what I'm sort of getting at. I kind of feel like with the way that, well, there's two things, right? With the way that Arteta's setting us up for a start, I don't think that there's a great deal of fluidity in the front three, and I still think there's disconnection between the midfield and the front three. Now, what my theory on that is that in order for him to make our average players look better, it means he's got to protect them. And because those average players need that protection, meaning they need the midfield to sit deeper, they need Xhaka to be sitting in this deep back three role in order to protect those average players and make them look better, because Xhaka looks better under Emery, Luiz looks better under Emery, Mustafi looks better under Emery. All of these guys, I know you're quite a big Luiz fan, but all of these guys looked a lot more Arteta. All of these guys look a lot better under Arteta, but I don't think that we look better in the front third. So it's an interesting time for me because, like I said, I am very buoyant on one hand because I'm buoyant with the victories, but I've seen a period of victory before under Unai Emery, actually under Unai Emery this time. And going back through the highlights and going back through the goals that we scored, Ozil's goals at Leicester, Ramsey's goal, Aubameyang's goal, there was some really expansive football played. I'm yet to see the type of expansive football played by Arteta that I want to see, and I hope that expansive football is to come.
I think so. I think a massive difference will be when he gets his choice left back in place in Kieran Tierney, because we can push Saka further forward then into his preferred role, and I think they could potentially be quite devastating on the left if they can click. And if we can get Saka further up the field, because let's face it, that's where he does all his good work, not at the back, although he's done it at the back, but that's not his position, and he could be quite devastating if he just let go of his defensive responsibilities, just had to press from the front, and then he had Kieran Tierney behind him and overlapping with him. We can get Aubameyang more in the middle, which is where he's comfortable, or just floating around, let him sort of pretty much pick up his own position, comfortable and where the match dictates. And then the same for Pepe on the right. It's going to be so much better. I mean, this is the obvious situation, but if we can actually get Arteta backed in the summer, if these rumours, for example, just humour me for 1 second, if these rumours, for example, are true that we could potentially unlock the release clause for Thomas Partey,
changes everything,
and we could have him in the team. Oh my God, it just becomes mouth-watering under Arteta. Absolutely mouth-watering. But I think a big thing is actually getting a fit Kieran Tierney in the team so it can release Saka. Just let him off and we can see what he can do. But the other good thing about that is that he can then rotate with Martinelli on the left. And that could be, well, it's needed. It's absolutely needed, because we saw in the second half how much Saka faded after playing 3 games in a week.
Rotation, squad strength.
He shouldn't have played. No. I mean, Kolasinac was awful, god awful. I mean, I was absolutely delighted in lots of ways. I don't want him to get injured. I'm not. I don't wish harm on the fella, but it was the best thing that could have happened. But we saw him fade in front of our eyes, and that was just down to tiredness. Let's face it, he's not a bad passer of the ball at all, but he made some terrible passes, terrible decisions, and that's because he was mentally tired as well as physically tired, I think. So if we could get Kieran Tierney at the back, and then he could rotate between Martinelli and Saka in front of him, that could be very, very in the end.
Saka is a massive player for us moving forward in a number of ways. And I've said on one of the Ask Bros podcasts recently, I don't think that you can pigeonhole him. I don't think like people who are like, oh, well, now we've got to get rid of Kolasinac and Saka has to get games at left back. And I'm like, the kid's 18. He's been thrown in with all of his confidence and They don't have the weight of the world on them, and he hasn't made mistakes yet. I think that's something interesting as well. With young players,
Absolutely,
they're often great until the pressure of the club turns around on them. Now, something I thought was really interesting, and I think Arsblog brought it up. He didn't go into the depth that I thought he was going to go into, but he brought it up. And he said, when Kolasinac came off, the reaction from the crowd when Saka came on was massive. Cheers, like a legend was coming on, like a savior was coming on. Now, some of that I think was because Kolasinac was poor, and I think as Arsenal fans we were sitting there thinking like, shit, Kolasinac's been really bad. As the sun comes up and comes through the window into my eyeballs in Australia at 7:20 in the morning. But one thing I thought really interesting there is, what happens when the mistakes get made, when the big mistakes get made, and the Arsenal fan base, as we know the Arsenal fan base are, jump on him and start having a go at him. And that's the thing with young players. So we're seeing guys in him, we're seeing guys in Martinelli now. Well, there's no pressure. There's no weight of the world on these guys. They haven't made major mistakes. And because they're not expected to be what they're being, and they're massive surprises to us, there's all of this goodwill towards them. And I think there's an element, and I've said this over and over again, of pumping the brakes a little bit with these guys when we're talking about them taking up key roles in the next season, because they basically had 6 months of full-fledged, I'm a kid, I can't believe I'm playing for Arsenal, running out, putting in 100% every single week, and it is zero pressure. So massive, massive players for us. Running into next season, Toby and I had this conversation as well. I don't mind the idea if we ran into next season and the two options we had off the left were Martinelli and Saka. Because they're young players, I like the idea that we can pull one out and put one in. So play someone for 3 or 4 games, as we know young players like to pulse, meaning they play really well for a couple of games and then they need to be pulled down. So I agree with Toby. I wouldn't hate the idea of Martinelli and Saka off the left interchanging. But I do have an issue with Saka and Tierney being our only 2 left-back options. And it's funny that I feel that way, but I just think there's less the pressure of being a defensive player really versus the pressure of being an attacking player are different. The pressure of having to score goals and provide assists from a wide position is different than the pressure of conceding goals at the back.
Cedric now as well, who can play left back. He has played left back a lot in the past.
What is that signing
and
about?
So is AMN.
And whose wife did AMN shag?
It's for depth. I can only think that he's been brought down a peg or two because of the way that he thinks that he's got the right to dictate which position he plays in the team. Yeah, and I think that he's just being punished. But he can play left back if we're called, if he's on, and so can this Cedric Suarez. And he's been brought in just for the depth because he covers left and right back. He doesn't. Arteta's openly made it obvious that he wants specialists in those fullback positions. He said straight away that AMN is not a right back, and he said straight away that Saka is not a left back. But he's praised Saka's attitude by saying that he wants to get in the first team and he's willing to learn the role and do his best in the role. And that's obviously get AMN. So that's genuinely what it is. He's just, he's just being put in his place. He wants him to sit out and watch how hard Saka and the other youngsters are doing for the team, working hard for the team and just getting stuck in with it and getting whether it's their position or not. Because you've got to face facts. He's never going to make it as a midfielder at Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about him maybe taking on that James Milner-y role, that guy who can play 3 or 4 different positions and be able to be a rotation-based player. We know that he can play up front wide on the wings. We know he can play either side. We know he's had time at defensive midfield. We know he's been a number 8. All of these things he's very capable of doing. Clearly, there's an issue with him, I would say, in training. We've known about him for a while that he's got that Bob Marley, smoke some reefer kind of attitude. He shows it on the ball. He shows it in games. I don't think that's something that then wouldn't transpire onto the training ground. And I think if we've seen the way that he's chinned Guendouzi, I can only imagine that the chinning that AMN has received must be even bigger. The difference between Guendouzi and AMN being that Guendouzi is an established player and AMN has never really established himself. Funnily enough, other than in the first 3 games with Arteta, where AMN, I actually thought it was his best football under Arteta, his most consistent football. I think I think for Arsbros, he was like almost man of the month for us in the first month. I think he was like second place for man of the month in our weird ranking systems that we do every month. But look, obviously he's like shitting someone's shoes or shagged someone's missus or done something like that and fallen out of favor, or he doesn't like to train. Or here's another crazy possibility, that got thrown up a while ago. He may very well have thrown his toys out the pram. He may have said, no, I don't want to play right back anymore. He's done it before. He could have done it again. We know he doesn't have that same mental fortitude or mental strength that we've seen from Saka and that we've seen from Martinelli, where they've taken their opportunities and they've just run with it. It's a real shame, because I've said for a long time that I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles is the most complete youth prospect at Arsenal. His ability, his skill, his touch, the way he pulls the ball down on his little toe out of the sky, some of the things that I've seen him do are just amazing. And I just hope that he's not one of those kids where it was always so easy for him that now it's got hard, he's going to fall by the wayside.
I think it's just down to his attitude and the way that he tried to go on the pitch wearing a necklace. He warmed up in
stupid.
That's just the problem. And the worst thing he could possibly done is talk about he's not right back. Everyone else gets to play in the position that they want. Why can't he? Might as well have started crying and rubbing his eyes.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And he should. He thinks he's made it. He thinks he deserves everything that he gets. He thinks he should get everything on a plate. And just quickly, because I know you've got to go in a minute, just to go back to one other thing you said about if has a bad game, what kind of reception is he going to get? Is he going to start getting slagged off? I've been following Arsenal now. I've been an Arsenal fan for nearly 40 years from when I was a kid. And one thing that I've learned is that academy prospects, I know, 46 years old, mate, 46.
46.
Now, one thing I've learned, though, one thing is that academy prospects always get more time and leniency than if with someone like Pepe, for example.
Very true.
Spent a lot of money on them. They will always get more leniency, and I can almost guarantee that Saka will get an awful lot of leniency because we can all tell how good he is. And I've read a lot of comments from Liverpool fans. I didn't mean to. A message that was on Twitter, and I thought it was funny, and I clicked on it, and I read the thread underneath it, and there was so many Liverpool fans all wanting Saka to join. A lot of them were saying that if we could get him for 50 million quid, I'd do it. 50 million already. And a lot of them were saying that he's already better than Andrew Robertson. I can guarantee. Honestly, my mouth dropped open, mate. I don't believe it. So when you hear other fans talking about Bukayo Saka like it, you realise the kid really is the real deal. I know, like I said, you've got to go in a minute. I just want to get your thoughts very briefly on the next 4 games we've got in the league are West Ham, Brighton, Southampton, and Norwich. In your opinion, how many points are we going to get out those next 12? The next 4 games out of a possible 12.
1 sec. Let me kiss my wife goodbye. Important things in life. Important things in life, Andrew. Yeah, how many points should we get?
Absolutely. You should have given her a cheeky little squeeze.
How many points should we get? I actually think it would not be, like I said, for a guy who hasn't been super impressed, or I haven't been enjoying the football very much. Not that I haven't been enjoying the victories and I haven't been enjoying the goals, but for someone who hasn't been enjoying the football a huge amount, I would like to think that those are 4 very, very winnable games. 4 very winnable games. Now, I don't know which one of those or 2 of those are going to give us problems. I don't foresee a loss in those 4 games. I wouldn't be surprised if there was 1 or 2 draws in there, though. And again, it comes back to what I was sort of saying a little bit earlier on. I think we really struggle against teams in a low block. Southampton had already given us troubles this season. I think Norwich had given us troubles this season as well. I think we should walk over West Ham. They're a shit team. They're just a shit team. Like, I don't know what else to say about West Ham, but there's just not a lot anywhere in that team that's a particularly well-constructed team or really good players. So I think we should shit that in. I think the good thing about that is if we shit that West Ham game in, I will say this. If we win that West Ham game and we win that West Ham game well, I can foresee us taking maximum points because I can see a momentum shift coming at Arsenal now, and the goals starting to come at Arsenal and the fun starting to come back. And I think that there are good enough players now attacking third, and there are enough goals in our team that we should be able to run over these teams. So I'm going to go with, now I've talked myself into it, 3 wins and a draw. I think in the 4 games, I think we should be able to pull 10 points out of that. And I think at the end of that, we'll be in the top 6.
I totally agree. And I thought that the exact same thing about what you just said about the West Ham match. That's exactly the reason why I thought the Everton match was such an important game. And it was so important to beat Everton. Because I thought if we could just about get the 3 points from Everton, it makes it the start of a winning run. 3 games on the trot. I think you can call that the start of a winning run, and which is what we've got. And I think going into these 4 games now with a lot of momentum, you could see what it meant to the players at the end of the matches, at the end of all 3 matches, but especially the Premier League ones. You can see what it meant to them to win those. And I really think that we've got that momentum now. And I can see us getting maximum points for all of the games. I really can. But I'd be very happy with what you said. If we got 10 out of the 12, that'd be incredible as well.
Do you agree with me? You think we would be top 6?
The amazing thing is, oh, yeah. I think we will, because the amazing thing is they're all playing each other in the next few weeks. And I think it's Tottenham are playing I believe, and Man City, you've got Man United.
Yeah.
So
draws.
We're going to claw
we
some
need
points
draws
back from these teams
everywhere. That's what we have to be barracking for. We need draws.
Yeah.
We need everyone to drop 2 points each.
Well, I want, apart from Spurs, I want them to lose.
Except Spurs. We want Spurs to lose 10-0. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Andrew. Podcasting.
Anyway, I know that you've got to leave.
Needs to be done.
Yes. Well, we should say this offline, off air, or whatever, but I know you've got to shoot. But we need to get in touch about what we spoke about recently as well. So if you're around tomorrow, maybe we can do that.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to start putting out on both of our channels, putting out some feelers to see if people are interested in this idea. Andrew and I have come up with this idea for next season that we want to do like a 606 phone-in kind of a show. So instead of you guys just putting in your comments each week, we're thinking about doing a monthly show where you guys put in your comments. The best comments, then we want to invite you guys onto the show to ask a panel of Arsenal guys your question for them to have a debate. So we're kind of thinking about doing this 606 phone-in where we might get sort of like 10 different people through the show over the course of an hour, and they get to ask our panel. They'll have guys like me on, guys like Andrew on. We'll bring in some of our other contacts from other podcasts and see if we can maybe get some kind of Arsenal personalities on there as it goes. But I'm really interested to see what your fan base thinks, what our fan base thinks, if they want to get their faces, because the whole thing is not a ring-in show, it's a video-in show. So we'll get to see your big, dumb, ugly Arsenal supporting heads right in the middle of our screens, and we can have a debate and have it out. I think it's got legs, Andrew, but I think we just got to work out how we're actually going to do it. Yeah.
And I'll be happy to host it. Like, instead of 606, we can 69.
Very, very good. All right, Andrew, I've got to go give my confessions to Mandy over on the Arse Bros.
Take care, mate, and I'll catch up with you maybe tomorrow if you're around, and we can have a chat. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Too easy, pal. Nice to not have an echo.
Take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you to Max. And you can get hold of him on Twitter, which is at ArsBrossRant. At ArsBrossRant. And let us know what you think about that idea about having a 606 style calling. We're just pushing the idea around at the moment. It's something I could host as a dual sort of branded Arse Brothers and From Dial Square to Where show. So let me know if you think that's going to be a good idea. Now we're just finishing up then. I just reiterate the next 4 games in the league are West Ham at home, Brighton away, Southampton away, Norwich at home. And I think that after that Everton game, and hopefully, fingers crossed, 2 more wins coming up against Olympiacos and Portsmouth, I'm really confident that the momentum is there, that we are getting 12 points out of those next 4 games. I'm sticking my neck out and I'm going to say that we are going to get 12 points coming up. And that will put us right back in the mix because, as I said, the teams above us are going to be playing each other over the next coming few weeks. And it's an excellent opportunity for us to claw a lot of points back coming up. So fingers crossed, we're going to be in a fantastic position by the end of March, going into the real nitty-gritty end of the season. So if anyone wants to put any questions in the comments box before I go, and please do, I am available for another few minutes before I sort of hang up the microphone for the night. As I said, I didn't think I'd be able to get a show on tonight, which is due to a lot of technical issues that I've had with the new computer that I've bought, and my internet connection is all good. I've tested it all, and it's all been good. And then it comes to the live show, and I've been getting terrible lagging, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do a show tonight. So thanks to ever so much for Max for coming on. Sorry to the other guests. We're going to try it again next week. But if anyone's got any last minute questions, then put them on. Rohan Verdi, thanks for your question. Rohan _ Verdi. Hopeful for 4th or 5th. I really am, because I can see us clawing back quite a few points over the next 4 games, Rowan. And as I mentioned, West Ham, Brighton, Southampton, and Norwich. Southampton are on a decent run, but that's going to be the hardest out of those 4 games as far as I'm concerned. And I really can see us getting 4 wins. I really can. And with the surprising sort of fixture list, the way it's worked out over the next few games, as I said, Wolves are playing Spurs this weekend, I believe. Man City are playing Man United. I can't remember who Chelsea are playing, but they're also playing one of the teams in to sort of the top end of the league as well. So they're all going to be clawing points off each other, and I can only see us getting good results over those next coming 4 games. I'm not even going to think about 5th place being available for the Champions League, though, Rowan. I'm really not. I mentioned earlier on in the show that I think that Man City won't rest until that ban is gone. I could see them even overturning the entire FFP rule, if I'm honest. I could see them actually really going for it with UEFA and trying to get that whole thing overturned as illegal, with the thought that what right in any other industry, no business will be told what they can and can't spend their own personal money on. And I think they're going to argue about FFP being illegal, that they should not have restricted trade. And I've got a bit of sympathy as far as that's concerned, although I hate Man City and all they've done to football, and Chelsea, obviously, and I hate it because it makes it far less competitive, and I hate it all it stands for. But at the same time, I do think that FFP is stupid in the fact that like I said, no other industry can you stop people from spending money the way that they want to improve their business. At the end of the day, Man City is a business. The owners are very, very rich. Why should they not be able to spend their money the way they want to? The big thing that I've got is that if FFP was to be scrapped, then it should be replaced with a rule whereby if someone like a big oligarch takes over Newcastle, for example, then the rule should be that they should have to pay upfront an amount of money which ensures the survival of the club for a minimum of 2 years, and that includes all of player wages, etc., ahead, and that should be paid upfront and kept in like a trust fund type thing in case they decide to walk away. And that then means that it secures the financial future of the club for a minimum of 2 seasons. And if that was to be the case, then that is a far, far fairer way of doing things, and it will put off a lot of people from doing this in the first place. And it means that they have got to put their money where their mouth is and not just walk off and leave the club in turmoil and ruin the club like the owner did with Bury. And I've got a lot of sympathy with the fans of these clubs like Bury, whereby the owners use them like a real life game of Football Manager, get bored or run out of money and just bugger off and leave the club in financial turmoil, and as in Bury's case, put them out of business altogether. So in my thoughts, for scrap FFP, but bring in a trust fund type situation which has to be paid upfront on takeover of the club, whereby it gives a financial figure that secures the club's future should they decide to walk off. A non-refundable deposit, if you like. That's my thoughts on it. Rohan, again, in that case, next round onwards, if we get a good draw, time to prioritise Europa and FA Cup over Premier League. No, I think we've got a big enough squad whereby rotation of 2 or 3 players per match as needed, as required, like he is doing, Arteta, we can quite comfortably cover the Premier League. Only 11 games left, and the remaining games in the Europa League with a full strength team at that point. The squad is big enough now. We've got a lot of players, and if we're going to rotate, then it should be in the FA Cup, which has to come third, obviously, in the list of priorities. As much as I love the FA Cup, we've got to get Champions League if we can. And the Premier League is very, very doable. Only 7 points back to claw back after 11 games is very doable, considering how Chelsea, Man United, Spurs especially are so inconsistent. So I think we're going to be much more consistent than those three, at least, from now until the end of the season. And I can see us clawing that back. So we've got to stay strong in the Premier League. And we've got the squad to be able to navigate the last 16 of the Europa League as well. Just in a play there as and when necessary. So, no, I would definitely not put a weaker team out in either competition apart from the FA Cup. I would definitely rotate as far as that's concerned. So, thank you ever so much for everyone that's listening to this back after the events happened. Thanks to everyone that's given us a watch this evening as well. Thanks for the questions, Rowan, especially as well. And many, many apologies for being late and for not being as advertised because of these technical issues. I assure you I'm working on everything I possibly can to get this sorted. And the episode for today will be back next Wednesday, all being well. So once again, thank you to everyone. Please give us a like on this video. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends. And for those listening to the podcast version of this show, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to just help us get this show out there to a few more people. And that would be really appreciated. I think all of us Arsenal podcasts, let's support each other. Let's get this Gooner fan working for each other. And let's get this, content of each other's out to as many people as possible. Thank you to everyone again. All the best, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.